thank all of you for praying for me. It enabled me to get back to what I love doing, and I do appreciate it. It's been almost 3 months since I was up here, and I don't know if I'm still capable of doing what I love to do or not, but I appreciate all of you being here. And I do want to also thank Billy, who has bailed me out before on several occasions, and I thank him personally for being always there when I needed somebody to fill in. I'm still not where I'm supposed to be regarding this stuff, but I'm feeling good enough to almost resume normal life. I've got some more treatments and so on in the next 2 or 3 months. But so don't forget me in your prayers, and we'll get me through this. Since it's been 3 months, I thought it might be wise not to pick up with verse 6 and forget about the first 5 verses, and look at those again. Maybe not with the same there we go. But I figured after 3 months, you've probably forgotten everything that we discussed. So let's go back through it again and look at the first 4 verses. God, after he spoke long ago to the fathers and the prophets, in many portions and in many ways, in these last days has spoken to us in his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the world. And he is the radiance of his, that is God's glory, and the exact representation of his nature, and upholds all things by the word of his power. When he had made purification of sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high, having become so much better than the angels, as he has inherited a more excellent name than they. The point being made here is to these Jewish people, called Hebrews also, is that God, this is the same God that they have been worshiping for 1,500 years. He's not presenting a new God, but he's saying that God has decided in his infinite wisdom and grace that it's time to speak to people through his Son. And it's literally in verse 2, it's in a Son, stressing the relationship that he is speaking now through a Son, not simply somebody like Ezekiel or Isaiah, but he's speaking through his Son. And then the next verses 2 and 3 give us the credentials of this man. Let's see, he is heir, or in this case could be possessor of all things. The world, the universe was made through him. He is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of God's nature. And this Jesus Christ upholds all things by the word of his power. And he's made purifications of sins, and he's sitting down at the right hand of God. Now ask them, does that qualify this man to be worthy of somebody to listen to? I would think so.
Pretty good resume.
It's what?
Pretty good resume.
Yes, a pretty good resume. Thank you, John. Hold on just a minute. I've got my other problem is my hearing.
Well, I would think you missed something.
Okay. So the writer here is going to use the testimony of their own Bible, their own scriptures, to make his case. And I think I mentioned 3 months ago that he is not using any ingenious or new interpretations of the scriptures that we're going to be looking at. The understandings or the interpretations were pretty much agreed to by all the Jewish rabbis. He's just going to point some things out in there that they have evidently missed. He says it came in many portions. Well, it did. Just think, and I think I mentioned this, just think of Ezekiel. How many ways God presented his message through that man. That's him alone, not to mention all Hosea, who was asked to marry a prostitute to get the point across. And he spoke by many different men in many different ways. And so they shouldn't be surprised that now he's chosen to speak in a different way in these last days, which is, I understand, the age of the Messiah, the Christian age that we are now living in. Let's see. Oh, by the way, there is a close connection not between the message of a person and who that person is. You all know that you pay more attention to certain people and you put more or less weight according to the credentials of that person. So that's why the credentials in verse 2 and 3 were presented. This man is worthy to be listened to. So there is a direct connection between the character of the messenger and the importance of his message. So his point seems, and one of his points in these first few verses is that if you don't listen to the Son, you're placing yourself in opposition to God. Because God has spoken and is speaking now through his Son. He is heir of all things. Verse 2, and he made the worlds through him, and I think we mentioned that worlds carries two meanings. One, the universe, the physical universe. Okay, Genesis 1. It also means the ages. Ages. So, not only did he make the world, but he made all the subsequent ages that the world has passed through and is going to pass through. And Jesus is the one who upholds or carries forth the physical universe to its conclusion that God has in mind for it, but also he is the age manager. Does that make sense? He's the age manager. That's what it says, at least to me. Upholds all things by the word of his power. Verse 3. He carries it all. It's his continual job to uphold what he and the Father have created. And I think I've already, I don't want to go through that again. Okay. Yeah. Everybody got that read? Okay. This is Paul's words about Jesus and his created part in creation. Both all things were made, both in heavens and the earth, visible and invisible. All things have been created through him and for him. I would think that the ages would be one of those invisible things that you can't put your finger on. And John 1:3, that all things came into being through him, which is the Word of God. I'm trying not to get bogged down. Okay, now in verse 3, he's going to change from past tense to present tense, and he is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his nature, and upholds, that's continually, all things by the word of his power. And then after all of that cosmic, mind-boggling thing,
You got to do it in the dark.
Do it in the dark.
that is strange. My phone rang at about 10 minutes after 7 with a warning from, there we go.
That it was somebody else for you? The fireworks won't be off?
No, it said, you live at 15 Boyd Street in Kimball, and there's a severe thunderstorm warning for your address from 7 to 7:45. And so I guess it's, I guess it's passing through, and pray that no one or nothing is hurt. Sir?
Is the computer going now, or you say?
Uh-oh. I hear the fan coming on.
Let's just carry on, it'll pick up again.
Guess you'll have to go old school and use the Bible.
What'd you say?
Guess you'll have to go old school and use the Bible.
Old school, yeah. It's showing red for the bulb, which is not good.
Order it up.
Okay. All right, verse 3. After talking about his being the same as God, and I guess that's what got me, that red light with the power there on the bulb. After saying all of that, and then the last part of verse 3 is, when he had made purification of sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. And I guess I think about that, and I ask, well, which one of those is the most awesome, the most difficult, the most important thing about Jesus as far as we're concerned in these verses? It's that he made purification for sin. That outweighs anything else in the verse as far as you and I are concerned, and now he's sitting at the right hand of God the Father, upholding all things by the word of his power. And oh, Scott, you laid your elder's hands on it. Thank you. Okay. All right, let's see. Verse 3. He sat down. That means he's through with his job that God sent him to do down here on the earth, as far as making purification of sins available for anyone who wants it. Now, do you ever read in the Bible of a priest sitting to do his job? No, you do not. They were never allowed to sit within the tabernacle precincts, ever. They stood in the presence. Angels are the same way. They always stand before God's presence. So that's, let's see, we've already looked at that, looked at that, we looked at that. Oh, it's gone back to a few slides. Okay. Hmm?
It does when you push that backwards button over and over.
It goes backwards, doesn't it? Yeah, there it is. Verse 10, 11. Every priest stands daily. And we don't need to dwell on that. And we don't need to do it. That has to do with his being temporarily made lower than the angels. And now, the night before his crucifixion, he says, you're going to glorify me with the glory I had with you. That is what he was before the world even was. And he said, this is good. Christ's name is far higher than those of the angels, but why do you need to make this point? Many in the ancient world still thought of angels as lords over the present world system. Others worshiped them. Still others regarded Christ as simply one in a descending order of angels. We call that group what? Gnostics. Those worshiping angels overrated angels by giving them what belongs to the Son. The others underrated the Son by considering him an angel. And the following verses put angels and the Son in the proper perspective. Okay, let's see. Somebody have something? Okay. By the way, what is the more excellent name in the last part of verse 4? Son of God. Yeah. Of course, the name stands for the person in the Bible generally. So he has a much more excellent name than an angel does, carrying the name the Son of God. Okay. All right. We've gotten through those fairly quickly. Verse 5 through 7. For to which of the angels, he asked, did he ever say this? Quote, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And when did he ever say to an angel, I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me? And again he says in verse 6, when he brings the firstborn into the world, the firstborn being Jesus, and let all the angels worship him. Angels of God worship him. Did he ever say that to an angel? No. And of the angels, this is what he says about them. Who makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire. So the first 5 and verse 6 tells us what he did say of Jesus, that he never said of angels. And then verse 7 says, well, I do have something to say about angels, and can put them in their proper perspective and relationship to the Son. They are ministers. I make them a flame of fire or winds, whatever job they need, that I need done, I make them fit or suitable for it. Now, verses 5, you are my son, today I have begotten you, is from Psalms chapter 2. Now, if you're like me, when I used to read this as a young man, it was simply Greek. I didn't know where the quotations come from generally, and I didn't know why he picked those. So, I'm going to go back, and we're going to try to find out, why, and get the context of what he's pulling out of this Old Testament and using as being applicable to his son, Jesus. Psalms 2:1. There's more of it than this. Why are the nations in an uproar, and the peoples devising a vain thing? This is what they're doing. The kings of the earth take their stand, and their rulers take counsel together against the Lord, the Father, and against his anointed, the Christ or his Son. And here's what they're saying. Let us tear their fetters apart and cast away their cords from us. That is, we do not want to be under their reign or rule. And what's God's reaction to these attitudes and statements on the earth about his Son? He who sits in the heavens laughs at them. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he, the Father, in verse 5, will speak to them, those who oppose his Son, in his anger, and terrify them in his fury, saying, this is the Lord God speaking. But as for me, in spite of what they say, I have installed my King upon Zion, my holy mountain, and I will surely tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, who is speaking in verse 7, we've had to change the speaker there. It's Christ speaking in verse 7. I will surely tell of the decree of the Father. He, the Father, said to me, the Son, you are my son. That makes it easy to figure out who's talking in verse 7. You are my son. Today I have begotten you. That's what the Father said to me. Ask of me, now the speaker goes back to the Father. He says, ask of me, and I will surely give the nations as your son's inheritance, and the very ends of the earth is your possession. Verse 9, you, the Son, will break them with a rod of iron. Talking about those who oppose God's enthronement of His Son. You shall shatter them like earthenware or pots. Now therefore, O kings, down there on the earth, you better show discernment. You better take warning, O judges of the earth. Worship the Lord with reverence and rejoicing with trembling. Do homage to the Son. Some translations have kissed the Son. Almost the same idea. So that He does not become angry and you perish in the way. For His wrath may be soon kindled, and how blessed are those who take refuge in Him. Now, we have the context of the statement, you are my Son, today I have begotten you. It makes sense to you now? God has decided I'm going to enthrone my Son. I don't care what the people on earth, those who hate me, who hate my Son, say. I'm going to put Him on this throne, and I'm going to call Him my Son. And those of you who are down here on the earth had better worship Him so that He does not become angry with you and destroy all of you.
This, I just got, I look back to see who wrote this song, and it's attributed to David.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But this commentary, whoever wrote it, seems to feel like that it's talking, it was ascribed to, that it was talking about David. That it's...
Originally, it probably was.
That it's second and primary fulfillment, or secondary fulfillment.
Would be Christ.
Would be Christ.
Yes, I agree with that.
That it was probably talking about David.
Yes, primarily, or I guess it's the right word, primarily. Its present use back in the days of David would apply to King David. And no matter what opposition there was, he was going to do it anyway.
And it still doesn't take the angels.
I'm sorry?
And that still didn't apply to any of the angels, even if it applied to David in the first. These things that he was saying, I just flipped back to Hebrew, so that's the problem. When he said the part about, I'll be called his son. You're my son. Today I become your father.
Yes,
That Hebrews is talking about it not applying to angels.
that's correct.
Even though the original fulfillment may have been talking about David.
Yes.
It was never talking about
Right.
an angel even then.
He was the type, and Christ was the antitype. But the point, I guess, we need to take away from this, John, is He never said to an angel, you are my son, today I have begotten you. That's quite an honor to be the Son of God. He never said that to an angel. Yeah.
And this is in contrast with, in the book of Job, and a couple of other places where he talks about the sons of God.
Yes. Yes.
This would be in contrast.
Yes. Old Testament angels are some. Here it is. It's Job 1:6, where Old Testament angels are referred to as sons of God, but none of the angels or anyone else was ever singled out.
God.
Yes, and given the kind of status as the Son is here in this passage. Yes, He's the only single individual with the status that He has that is singled out. For you are my Son, today I have begotten you. Yes. Job 1:6, Job 2:1. In fact, in Exodus 4:22, it was applied to Israel as a whole. Israel, my son. Okay, to the whole nation.
I mean, he refers to us as children, right?
I'm sorry?
He refers to us as children.
Oh, yes, yes, but not in the unique way that his son is.
No.
Yes, and that's his point, nor the angels either. Yeah. Uh, let's see.
Is this one in this,
I'm sorry?
the,
Oh, only begotten? Yes, it is.
in this
Unique,
verse
one and only. Same one, as John, 3:16?
two? Yes.
Yes. Again, he takes these texts and doesn't make a big deal about them. He expects all of the people who are listening to him, the Jews or the Hebrews, to accept those as good Jewish rabbinical teaching. All right, the second part of it is, and again, verse 5, I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. That is from 2 Samuel chapter 7. Nathan is speaking to David. And, hold on just a minute. 2 Samuel 7:14, a prophecy of Nathan concerning David's royal son, who was who? Solomon. Okay? Solomon. And the promise really referred primarily, or at least partially, to Solomon. But as many other Old Testament statements, it finds its only, or in full fulfillment in Jesus Christ. But in there, David wants to build a temple. And Nathan tells him what?
Go ahead. First.
At first, but God says, no, you're a man of blood, you shed too much blood, I'm not going to let you build it. He let him plant it, but he said this temple is going to be built not by you, David, but by your son Solomon.
You let him get all everything for it too.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But actually, the construction, he never got involved in that. He did do a lot of getting the materials to the site. Yes, I'm sorry, I guess I should have mentioned that. And I think I have. There it is. This is Nathan's words, when your days are completed, David, and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you, Solomon, who will come forth from you, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. And here's the line that our writer quotes from the middle of that prophecy. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. So its immediate application is to only one person, Solomon. But he takes that part I have underlined and says that what Nathan was really talking about ultimately applies to Jesus Christ. Now, finish the verse. And you'll see he didn't quote the rest of the verse for a very good reason. When he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of men and the strokes of the sons of men. But my loving kindness shall not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, when I remove whom I removed from before you. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever, and your throne shall be established forever, in accordance with all these words and all this vision. So Nathan spoke to David. So here we've got, obviously, what's to me a double reference. Okay, primarily Solomon, but that line that the writer picks out says that also applies to Jesus. Now, to my Western way of thinking, I would have never come up with that. I would have never come up with that. But that was Jewish understanding of these verses, and obviously the way that God wanted them to be understood. So we pick out the first half of verse 14 and say, well, that applies to Jesus, but the last part doesn't. Does that sound strange to you? Yes, it does to me too. Yes.
Well, because it's all part of the same sentence.
Yeah, same sentence.
Like, why would you change in the middle of the sentence you're talking about?
You're not, because the sentence in verse 14 is concerning Solomon. And if Solomon commits iniquity, I will correct him.
He wasn't going to have to correct Jesus.
He wasn't going to have to correct Jesus, because it wouldn't mean he sinned found in his God.
Well, if you go on down, it starts talking about your house and your kingdom will endure for me forever. That's eternally, not just in this world, but eternally, and your throne will be established forever, which Christ was the one that would come and sit on that throne.
He goes back to it,
And
doesn't
so
he?
basically, and that statement there has to do with all those David and all those that descended after him were ruled. As a matter of fact, the notes in my Bible here says that was read to the king at the coronation,
Okay.
when the next king in line would become king, where that was used in the coronation process, basically passing on that God, you're responsible to God because you're a son to me, and I'm going to be over you as your father.
But
This
if,
will go on forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And then he tells him, you step out of line, I'm going to smack you like a father.
Yes. Yes, even though you're king, you've got to toe the line, yes. But it's, well, I guess the word is interesting, how he pulls that out in Hebrews 1:5. I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me, and says clearly in that verse that that part of that prophecy that David made to David concerning his son Solomon applies to Christ. I'm not sure I understand how or why that was done, but I know that it was the right thing, because that's what the Hebrew writer said. So he speaks of Solomon as the type and Christ as the antitype, or the one who answers to the type of Solomon. Let's see if we can get verse 6. And when he again brings the firstborn into the world, he says, let all of the angels of God worship him. Firstborn here means chief. It means preeminence, the number one position. And here, the writer quotes from Psalms 97, verse 7, from the Septuagint version of it, LXX. If you look at the Old Testament, the quotation won't read like this, because it was made probably from the Old Hebrew Masoretic text. But he took it from the Greek translation and said, let all that worship graven images be ashamed, who boast of their idols, worship him, all you angels. So that's where that is picked up from. But there's also another place where this is found, in Deuteronomy 32:43, also taken from the Greek translation. Rejoice, ye heavens, with him, and let all the angels of God worship him. And you can read the rest. But if you turn to those two verses in the Old Testament, they'll read differently, because the two translations are different. Verse 7. I tell you what, it ain't far. Let's stop right there at verse 6. I'm happy we got through verse 6 verses. Any questions? Let me know, and I'll tell you who to go to get the answer. Anything else? I appreciate your patience with me. Hopefully, I won't have this happen for another 4 years. Let us pray. Father, for your word, we thank you so much. And we ask again for understanding, insight, and wisdom as we look at it, learn what it says, and how it applies to us as we live here today. Bless us and keep us, and help us keep our eyes always focused on Jesus, and to trust him always. In his name we pray. Amen.
Yes, sir.